Right. Hey Nicole, happy World Otter Day.
Happy World Otter Day, everyone. My name's Nicole, and we are here at Stellar Cove at the Oregon Zoo, and we are celebrating World Otter Day. So with one of our sea otters, and this is Sushi.
So tell us about Sushi. Who is Sushi?
So Sushi is a 1.5-year-old female. She was born out in the wild, but for some reason was orphaned, so we're not sure what happened to her mom. And we have had Sushi since she was just a couple months old, and she has been living at the Oregon Zoo for almost a year.
So who does she live here with? We have a couple other sea otters, right?
We do. So Sushi's a southern sea otter or a California sea otter, and she lives with 2 other sea otters here at the Oregon Zoo. We have Lincoln, who is our male, and we have Juno, who is our older female.
So for folks just tuning in, can you tell us how old Sushi is?
She's 1.5 years old, so she's not full grown, but she probably will put on maybe another, probably 15 to 20 pounds. But she is, right now Amy is feeding her shrimp, and she also gets clam, capelin, squid, and crab. So she eats a lot of food. So she's a healthy little otter, and she will be putting on more weight as she gets older. They usually reach full weight about 2 to 3 years old.
So we have a question. Does Sushi like peanut butter?
Peanut butter? I don't think. Sushi likes a lot of things, but peanut butter is probably not one of them.
So what are some of her favorite treats?
So some of her favorite treats are seafood. Just like out in the wild, we feed them a lot of their natural prey items here at the zoo. She likes shrimp, clam. We give clam in the shell and out of the shell, so they actually have to work to get the clam out of the shell and bang it. It's pretty fun to watch that. She gets crab, a marine fish called capelin, squid, mussels, and then she also gets a live crab once a month and a sea urchin, which sea urchins are really big treats for sea otters.
So Livy's asking, how did she get the name Sushi?
Oh, that's a great question, Libby. So we wanted to come up with a cute name, but we also wanted to really make people aware that taking care of the oceans and the animals inside that live in the oceans is really important to take care and conserve sea otters. So a lot of people love sushi, and we really want people to make sustainable choices when they go out and order seafood and sushi. So we named her Sushi because we thought it was cute, but also because we really wanted to remind people how important seafood is and the oceans.
So we got I missed who asked this, but it was, what other kind of otters are there? It's World Otter Day, so let's talk about some of the other types of otters.
Okay, well, sea otters are one of 13 species of otter that live in the world. And I wish I could name all 13, but a few other examples are the smooth-coated otter, the North American river otter, the Asian small-clawed otter, the giant otter, and they do live on most continents across the world. In North America, we have river otters and sea otters.
So what's the difference between a river otter and a sea otter? Sometimes people are at the coast and they see an otter, they think it might be a sea otter.
Yeah, great question. We get a lot of questions about that, actually. So if you come to the zoo and you see a sea otter, one thing you're going to notice right away is they tend to float on their backs and they have their bellies up. You're probably not going to see a river otter do that too much, if at all. Sea otters have a very thick fur coat, and it may not look like it from a distance, but when you go to feel them, their thick coat is actually the thickest fur of any animal on the planet. So when you feel it, it feels very dense and fluffy. Sea otters tend to be quite a bit larger than river otters. River otters about 1/3 the size of sea otters. And then, of course, where they hang out and live differs, but they do kind of have that meeting zone too. So it's not that you can't see a river otter in salt water or a sea otter maybe up a little bit into the wetlands area, but for the most part you're going to see sea otters in the marine area and river otters more in wetlands and estuary type areas. And then their diet's slightly different too. Like we talked earlier, Sushi eats seafood and crustaceans and invertebrates. River otters will eat crayfish and fish as well. In fact, their main diet for both the species is fish, but they do have a little bit different based on where they live.
So Jack has a question. Does Sushi have fins? What do you call her limbs that she uses to swim with?
Okay, great question, Jack. So, a little anatomy information. Sushi has flippers, and flippers actually have skeletal bones in them, whereas fins do not have bones typically and are seen more in fish. So when we talk about the anatomy of a sea otter, they are called flippers.
So Jordan's asking, how do you tell Sushi apart from the other otters?
Oh, great question, Jordan, because sometimes I get them mixed up. So Sushi is the smallest sea otter that we have, but she's so close to Lincoln. Sometimes I have to take a minute to look at them and really tell. You can tell from their boy and girl anatomy parts sometimes, but also their behavior can really be different sometimes. Sushi is very active, and she's oftentimes very close or right on Juno, our other female. Juno's kind of played like her big babysitter, big sister, whereas Lincoln tends to hang out more by himself.
Meredith is asking, does Sushi have a special rock?
Does Sushi have a special rock? So we don't give rocks to the sea otters here at the Oregon Zoo. It doesn't mean that they don't get a hold of them every once in a while, though, because they can sneak in with their seafood. But Sushi really likes little toys that she can bang. So you'll notice that Amy has a couple of like toddler cups and blocks and stuff. Sushi will use those and play with those. But as far as a favorite rock, no, she doesn't have one of those that we've seen so far. She's just learning how to retrieve and give back the object, so that's what all the splashing is about.
So Melissa's asking, would a sea otter make a good pet?
Would a sea otter make a good pet? Well, probably not, because they require a lot of money to feed them. It costs between $10,000 and $15,000 a year to feed one sea otter, because they eat a lot of food, but the types of food that they eat is very expensive seafood. Plus, you have to have the salt water for them to hang out in, and they're really good at destroying things that can be unscrewed. They're kind of like raccoons. They like to use their little paws and unscrew things and mess with things, so they could probably take apart your house pretty quickly.
So I think the name was Mitra. The question was, how long did it take to train Sushi to be able to work with her like this?
Oh, great question. So, well, we start working with the animals as soon as they come in. So if that means they come in at 8 weeks, they'll start getting that basic training at 8 weeks. Sometimes they come in a little older. Usually the younger you start training them, the quicker and faster they learn. But Sushi is a pretty sharp animal, so it usually doesn't take her more than a couple of weeks to learn a new behavior.
Oliver's asking, how fast is she?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Maybe Amy could toss out a piece of food, Oliver, and you can see she's very fast underwater and on top of water. And you can see she uses her rear flippers when she swims through the water, and she kind of undulates. So they're super fast in the water, but when you see them on land, they can be pretty fast on land as well. But they do spend most of their time in the water.
So when do they come on land? In what situation would a sea otter need to come on land?
So really they don't need to come on land ever. They eat, they go to the bathroom, they mate, they give birth, they raise their young, they hunt, they do everything in the water. But occasionally you might see an otter resting maybe in a rocky area or hanging out on a sandy beach somewhere. But for the most part, you're probably going to have to see them from a pier or from a boat out in the water.
Lauren's asking, how long has Sushi been living here at the zoo?
Sushi's been here for about a year.
And for the folks tuning in, can you tell us where she came from and how she ended up living here with the other rescued sea otters?
You bet. So Sushi is one of our 3 southern sea otters here at the Oregon Zoo. And she was orphaned. We're not sure what happened to her mom off the coast of California. There is a lot of effort that goes into people trying to find the moms, but they do nurse when they're pups, and they eat a lot of calories every day. So if mom can't be found in a short amount of time, they usually have to be brought into a rehab situation. And then she came here shortly after that. And as well as our 2 other otters, Lincoln and Juno, they also were orphaned off the coast of California.
So Katie's asking, what predators do sea otters have in the wild?
Great question. So probably their biggest threat as far as other animals go are great white sharks. in California. Great white sharks tend to be at their north and southern sea otter ranges, and even though great white sharks don't eat them, they will mistakenly go after a sea otter thinking it's probably another type of prey like a seal or a sea lion. But once they bite into that fluffy otter, they learn real quick, oh, this isn't what I think it was, and they'll drop it. But a lot of times those shark bites, unfortunately, can be a lethal bite for a sea otter.
Josh is asking, what is a sea otter's lifespan?
Sea otters usually live to be, 15 to 20 years, usually if they're under human care, because they have medical care and they're usually safer from diseases. They can live into their, 20 to 25. And usually females live a bit longer than males do.
Abby is asking, why do sea otters sometimes swim on their backs?
Abby, great question. So, sea otters tend to swim on their back, and if you look, they'll use their chest as a table. They have these handy-dandy little pouches or pockets in their armpit area where they'll stash food, and that just makes them efficient hunters, because when they dive down and find prey, they can shove food in these little extra folds of skin or pockets, and then when they come to the surface of the water, they don't have to dive as much. They can sit there and pull those snacks out of their armpits, use their chest as a table, and eat.
Angie is asking, how closely related are sea otters and sea lions?
Oh, well, they're both mammals, and they're both in the carnivore family, but these guys are mustelid, so they're actually more closely related to like weasels and badgers, whereas sea lions and seals are pinnipeds. So even though they are both technically marine mammals, they're from different families.
So we had a question about whether the sea otters get along well. Are they friendly with each other?
Oh, great question. Yes, our three sea otters absolutely seem to enjoy each other thoroughly. It is not very often that you see them separated. They're usually all three playing together, roughhousing together, chasing each other, and hanging out together. So, yes, they do seem to enjoy each other's company a lot.
So Nicole, what are some of the threats that sea otters are facing, and how can people help?
Yeah, great question. So, the environment that they live in, it's really important that we take care of the marine environment, not just for sea otters, but for a lot of different species of marine animals. Sea otters, pollution and things that end up in the water where they live can be a really bad situation for them, because they do groom their fur, and then of course they can ingest that, but also the animals that they eat live in that environment. So if they have high levels of toxin, that can be an issue with sea otters as well. So one thing you can do is think about don't wash chemicals and other stuff down drains in your streets, and try to use organic stuff as much as you can. And if you like to eat seafood, it's really helpful to do sustainable seafood buying. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has a great program called Seafood Watch, and that can help you determine what types of seafoods are better to purchase than others, even if you're in a restaurant. And then of course, one of the easiest things you can do is the next time you go to the beach, if you see trash or junk on the beach, please pick it up, because that stuff ends up in their environment and can cause long-term health problems for these animals.
And we'll take one last question to wrap up our little World Otter Day live stream here. Juliet and Stephanie want to know, how and where do they sleep?
How and where do they sleep? Good question. So these guys sleep on the surface of the water, usually belly up, and they're super cute. Their heads, their front paws, and their rear flippers dry up, so they look kind of fluffy, and they'll just float in the water. Out in the wild, it's not unusual to see a mom wrap their pup up in kelp so that they kind of don't drift off if they leave for a short time to go hunting. So if you come out to the zoo and you see our animals, it's not uncommon to see them against the window, sleeping and looking really cute.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Nicole.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for coming to the Oregon Zoo and spending some time with us. We're really excited to be able to celebrate World Otter Day, even though we don't have any guests right now. But please, if you guys are interested, you can follow the link below this post, and there's some at-home activities that you can participate in. And of course, we'd love to see what you come up with. And then again, the zoo, like a lot of businesses, are in financial strain right now. So if you have an interest in donating, we do have a donate button, and please just go ahead and donate what you can. And thanks again so much for sharing this opportunity with me, Amy, and Sushi.
Thanks, Nicole.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Nicole. Bye, Sushi.